Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for attending our webinar on effectively communicating climate action for fostering community involvement today. My name is Maria Rosa, and I'm a climate ambassador mentor for Care About Climate from Paraguay. So before we start, we would like to know a little more about you. To do so, we invite you to go to Mentimeter's website or use the QR code, type the numbers you see on screen, and answer the questions. First, we would like to know from where you join us. And second, what inspired you to register for this webinar? So according to your responses, we have most people coming from North America, Asia, and then Africa. I guess I'm the only South American here. And there is one person joining us from Europe. So our next question is, why did you decide to attend the webinar today? You can type your answers in the same website.
Hey.
Oh, we have many answers. So so far, our first reason is to share experiences, connect, learning as well. I like this term, network learn, career related. So yes, we can learn from each other's experiences and from other points of view as well. Then we have for the environment, to meet leaders, to gain some knowledge, community connectivity, citizen science interest. I like that. It's a good term. To know more. Yes, we have a little bit of everything, but most of the reasons people are attending this webinar are related to learning, to sharing experiences. So moving on, now that we know a little bit more about you, to those of you who haven't heard of Care About Climate before, we are a nonprofit organization that seeks to educate, empower, and unite people around the world to advocate for effective and just climate solutions. To achieve this mission, we offer multi-language, gender-based programming through Empodera Clima, international climate pledge tracking through our climate advocacy and accountability program, Climate Academy's Climate School, educating global youth about climate science and action at whatever level best, and mentorships for individuals implementing local climate action projects through climate ambassadors. So we have a quote that we would like to share with you. The problem isn't that people haven't been given enough facts, it's that they haven't been given facts in the right ways. Yeah, so many climate actions conversation often focus on the importance of including all voices in the decision-making process and of communicating climate action. While this is very important, we find fewer conversations on how to actually communicate climate action and sustainability topics. Recognizing that our understanding of climate change is shaped by unique mental models and personal experiences, today's conversation is focused on discussing, learning, and reflecting on different tools for communicating climate action and sustainability effectively. So, before we continue, we would like to ask you to please keep your audio muted and send all questions to everyone in the chat. There will be time for questions and discussions after the panel. You can find this part at the chat sector and just send the messages to everyone. So this webinar will be broken down into two parts. During the first session, we will have a panel discussion with professionals in the climate action sector about their experiences effectively communicating climate action to foster community involvement. The second session, or the second part, will consist of a workshop in which participants split up into breakout rooms to reflect and discuss communication efforts with the climate ambassadors' mentors. Yeah, so this is basically just the two main divisions in this webinar. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. On the panels today, we have Valerian Bernard, UN representative for Brahmakumari World Spiritual University. Welcome.
How are you?
Then, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nisrim Al-Saim, Chair of UN Secretary General Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change.
For like stuff.
I can see that.
Yeah, I think she's not here yet, but she will be join us as soon as she accesses the webinar. And then William Walker VI, undergraduate sustainability and urban planning at Arizona State University. Welcome. So this part of the webinar is the first one, and we have prepared some questions for our panelists on the topic of this webinar, effectively communicating climate action for fostering community involvement. The first one, what is your favorite climate action project you have worked on and why? Maybe Valerian would like to start?
Thank you very much. First, thank you for having me on this webinar, for organizing it. I'm aware of the amount of work it means, so congratulations. There is a project that I have worked on that I love very much. It's called yogic farming. And I like it very much because it's a grassroots project from the people who are farmers in India. It is coming at a time when, if you remember, there were lots of farmers in India committing suicide. And these people decided to start a project that would involve both spirituality and farming, because they were all meditators themselves. So they started this project by meditating on the seeds in the center, with the people going to these places for a month and then planting these seeds. They went on meditating in the field. And the results in terms of the nutrients of the plants and in terms also of the quality of seeds was just amazing. So much that a few universities in India, agriculture universities, studied this project. And the proof that it was an amazing project was the people working for the university decided to order these vegetables themselves. So I like this project because people who have nothing, in a time where everything was difficult, became actually so proud of their work. I visited these farmers. I had the privilege of meeting them. And it makes a big difference for the climate when you do things that way, instead of using pesticides and all these Monsanto seeds that they have to use now in India. They could actually fertilize their seeds through the power of meditation. So it was an amazing project, giving the farmers not only pride, freedom, and also an amazing community relationship, and also with their families, because as you know, children of farmers are not always aware and proud of their parents, but seeing the results, they started creating an amazing relationship, not only with their families, but their communities.
Thank you so much for your response. Um, we have Nisrim here. So maybe if you didn't listen to our first question, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. So our first question is, what is your favorite climate action project you have worked on and why?
I think, first of all, thank you for having me here. And I really hope I'll become a very light guest on you all. I think the more favorable climate action project I worked with was, we called it Yellow for Green. And we called it Yellow for Green because we worked with telecommunication company, and the logo of them was yellow, so we called it Yellow for Green. And the main idea of the project was to communicate with different people in local communities and talk to them about climate change: farmers, pastors, household women, and girls at school, and different communities, to talk to them about climate change. What I liked it most about it is a lot of people were very much amazed to know that what they are actually feeling is not just illusions, because a lot of them started feeling climate change already, but they thought that they're just illusion, or it's just something will go today or tomorrow or any other day. But they were amazed to know that there is a scientific evidence of what they are saying, and there is an actual explanation of the extreme weather events they are seeing, the changing seasons they are seeing, and etc. etc. It actually taught me that knowledge is power, and it's very important for us to spread knowledge, because when they knew that there's a climate change, and it's not something that is going to disappear tomorrow or then, they tried to actually plan differently to their life, to their crops, to their cottons, and so on. So knowledge is actually power, because when we know things, we can plan better than when we don't know different issues. So yeah, I guess this is my favorite project that I worked with in.
Sharing that. I'm taking notes because I normally do take notes in webinars, so we can then go, because sometimes we we'll listen to them, and by taking notes, we can come back to them. So about the first question, now we have William. If you would like to share your experience about your favorite project.
Yeah, for sure. First off, thank you everyone for having me. I'm very appreciative to be here. I'd say that my favorite climate project that I've worked on so far was one that really centered community engagement and conservation and really focused on a lot of social sciences within that. So over the summer, I did a summer-long internship with Washington Sea Grant, and Sea Grant is a subsidiary of NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Sciences thing. So basically the project was to help develop an urban marine program. So we looked at a lot of socioeconomic data, as well as a lot of the demographics of the region to see what community engagement could look like and how we can really delve into conservation methods and making a lot of programming and accessibility to marine foods and ecosystems to different communities that just don't necessarily have that experience. It was something that was very vital to my development, and it made me think about like a lot of different things. And it made me think about how climate is always thought of in the realm of like atmospheric sciences and things like that. But sometimes we don't always center community or like a lot of non-living beings within that. So it really made me think about a lot of different intersections.
Thank you for your answer. So maybe we should move on to the next one. So it says, in your profession, how does communication play a role in inspiring others to take action? So maybe we can start when it's Reem.
Yeah, I was smiling because this is a very broad question. This is broad question because the definition of inspiring others and the definition of making a difference and the definition of leadership, for example, are very broad concepts as well. So, for example, I know a lot of people in the climate action movement. Me, myself, I consider them as leaders and inspiring people. But many others also doesn't consider them the same. So I think this very much depends on your personal indicators and calibers of inspiration and so on. For me personally, I think communicating the good practices we had, but also the lesson we learned during our journey is very much powerful. Telling personal stories when it comes to awareness of climate action and climate change is also very much effective. For example, in Sudan, a few weeks ago, we had a very horrible flood. It was the worst flood in 100 years. More than 8,000 were actually homeless, and we lost assets in millions of dollars. And what I decided to do is, because I talked to a lot of people about how much we lost things and so on, but they didn't really understand a lot of what I said, or they understood, but they didn't feel it because they weren't there. They didn't see actually how it's happening. So I decided to make a video, and the video I made, I explained everything that's happening in the country and the size of the damage, and I took live shots from the field and so on. And everyone who actually saw the video actually thought differently than when I was just speaking. So sometimes moving the climate crisis, for example, to the people instead of bringing people to the climate crisis is by far more effective. And also pictures, the power of pictures is very much massive. It's not something we should underestimate. And passion. Whenever you have passion and you talk with passion and you act things with passion, people actually feel the vibes of your passion, and they become passionate also of your own passion. So yeah, this is one of the most recommendations that I will give, is to do everything with passion, especially with climate change, because it's not something small. It's about our future of the planet. I will also share the link of the video I made in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. And I'm sorry to hear about what happened in Sudan. Here in Central America, we have some hurricanes as well. And I mean, we are facing impacts of climate change almost everywhere. So, Valerian, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I have the question. Thanks. So, as some of you might have gathered, I'm working with the Spiritual University. And when I started working with climate, I became aware that religious and spiritual organizations did a lot of work. And therefore, I started working not only for my organization, but also for the coordination of the different spiritual organizations and religious organizations. So communication has a big role to play because you need to inspire people to act. So you need to inspire people to act at different levels, at the level of the communities that you are connected to, because people hear so much things about climate that they kind of feel totally sad and totally lose hope. So you need to make people feel through your communication that they can make a difference. And one of the big differences that each one of us can make through his actions straight away is the lifestyle. We can eat differently, like being vegetarian, for instance, diminishes immediately, enormously, your step on the earth, your footstep. You can also decide to use different ways to travel, etc. So you can communicate with your people that way. You can also, we built, Brahma Kumaris built an enormous power plant, a solar power plant that's actually giving energy to over 20,000 people. So when there is a will, there is a way. And when there is enthusiasm and when there is passion, as my friend was saying just now, you really can make a big difference at the personal level, but also at the level of your family and your community. But then working with the at the COPs with the UNFCCC, you also find that so many people are burnt and lose hope. I've seen negotiators cry. I've seen people really being totally losing total hope. So I think that it is so important to make people feel that there is a way to look at that that's different. Because why is climate change there in this way? Because the way we consume, but also because of the relationship human beings have created with the environment, with nature in general, with life in general, with other people, with themselves. And so reversing this is also at the heart of our work. And it's at the heart of our work also to make these deciders, these leaders, be aware of that, because most people are only seeing creating laws and having campaigns, and everybody's doing their best to make everybody sensitive to the reality, because in many places like Sudan or India, it's a matter of death and life. So there is a lot to say, but I think in essence, maybe working with all these friends from different religions was also amazing. And this moment of hatred, people hate other religions. So to actually gather groups of Muslims and Christians and Hindus and Buddhists and work together on creating a community, a loving community, where we support the negotiators at the COPs, but also where we support the people on the ground through whatever action people can do.
Thank you so much. I guess it must have been a really challenge to work with people from different religions, because like you said, there's a lot of hate going on.
I'm not challenged by that. I actually love it. I love variety. And, in all religions, loving others is really at the heart of, uh, of religion. So I think that if you practice the spiritual aspect of your religion, it's very easy, and it's great to do that, to discover others. Like many people put learning about others, learning about their ways, learning about their needs, learning about their preoccupations.
Yeah, I totally agree. So now we have William.
Uh, um, so I would say that communication plays a very vital role in order to make action happen. And you really have to have a standpoint of empathy when you're going into this and see where a lot of your stakeholders are coming from. When you're communicating about climate, when you're communicating about sustainability, communicating about environment, there's going to be a variety of different people, a variety of different interests, a variety of different cultures. And I'd say that really it's essentially reaching beyond the choir. Like what is your goal? What do you want to do? How can you be empathetic and look from other people's perspective? I'd say that if we were really to instill empathy in a lot of the climate movement, then we can be a lot more effective and we can be a lot better. Of course, we all have like our own interests and our own goals because we're all individual people. But when we're able to just be empathetic and come together, we're able to really make that change happen.
Yes, I do believe that empathy is really needed in this field per se. um, we definitely need to be able to walk a mile in other people's shoes. I think there's an expression in the States. So moving on to our third question. What do you think are the greatest challenges in climate action, and what tools do you use to overcome these challenges? Maybe we can start backwards right now and go first with William.
Yeah, I'd say that the greatest challenges in climate action communication is really the empathy when we're not really looking beyond and we're not highlighting other voices within the climate movement. That emerges as the greatest challenge because everyone has their own interest. You can be working with maybe industry and maybe they're polluters. Maybe you could be working with community. And if you're not centering that community, then how are you able to overcome challenges? How are you able to make any type of success and climate change whatsoever? I'd say that the tool to overcome these challenges is to really instill that empathy and reach beyond and to really highlight other voices. There's a lot of voices in the climate movement that are not always highlighted, and it's usually the ones that are most effective, which are BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, marginalized communities, low income communities. So when they're not centered in this talk and when you go into their communities and just try to change it, it doesn't really help. I like to use the term helicopter research, which is essentially this term used when a lot of scientists, conservationists, research, etc., people go into these different fields to overcome challenges in climate and to work with communities. And instead of actually like collaborating, they essentially exploit and extract and leave without leaving any sustainable system behind whatsoever. So I'd say that to overcome these challenges, it's really collaborating and knowing how we can best listen, support, and collaborate with the different people around us.
Okay, thank you for your insight. Um, what about you, Nisreen? What do you think are the greatest challenges?
Well, actually, climate change or climate action actually have many layers of action. Uh, there's the policy level and the diplomacy level, which is the negotiation and the UNFCCC and so on and so on. And there is the national and regional level when you work with other networks, other group people and youth groups and so on. And there is the national level when you try to work with your own people on ground. I think every sector have their own challenges and their own tools to overcome these challenges. But I guess the only common tool and challenge between all of the sector is illiteracy or climate illiteracy, climate change illiteracy. When people doesn't know about climate change, they can't actually react with you when it comes to climate change. So education, knowledge spreading, awareness raising, whatever the terminology we are using in different sectors and different institutes, plays a huge role in all of the sectors of the climate action. For example, if the decision makers or the policy makers doesn't really understand how climate change is affecting them, they will take any deal at the negotiations. It will not be very much strict on with their benefits, where their people benefit and their continent benefit, and so on. But if they actually realize how much climate change is going to impact them, even in their homes, even if they realize that the voters back home actually cares about climate change and they will not give them their voices and they will not vote for them again in the next elections if they did not care about climate, they will also care more. On the regional level, if other regions, for example, in Africa, we have many youth movements on climate change. But then when we try to actually measure the impact of these youth movements on the continent and compare it to the challenges we have in the continent here in Africa, it's something neglectable almost, the impact of the youth groups. And I take this back to the lack of coordination, lack of communication between different youth groups. So I think communication is also a very important and strong tool in achieving goals more effectively. When it comes to the in-country grassroots working, it's very important to understand the community that you're working with, the restrictions, their taboos, the things that they care most about it, how can you address sensitive issues to the community, and so on. And when you do your homework very well, I think you will succeed very well also. So if you studied any community that you are actually trying to communicate or interact or do climate action in, the results will be always good as you did your homework and your part of research. And I like the terminology of the helicopter research thing. I will use it a lot. Thank you, William.
We're definitely here to learn, right? So finally, we have Valerian. What would you like to say about the greatest challenges in climate action?
It's nice to speak third because I agree with my two colleagues and they've already spoken beautifully. Just to add, I think that yes, we have to give information and also be aware of the actions that need to be taken at the level of our countries. Like the NDCs are going to be out just now. They're already out, many of them, and still we are not having enough contributions to go to a safe place of 1.5. So we have to really make people aware of the importance of action, especially countries. But then in the way we communicate, one very important thing also is that we have to convey hope. Because if people are totally losing their hope, they lose their power to act. They're depressed and sad and feel that nothing is going to happen. The way they go into action is destructive. And we can see there's a lot of destructive actions also. So I think that one thing to keep in mind when you educate or when you share at the level of climate is to share in an empowering manner so that the people feel that, yes, we need to go into a transition. But most people are afraid of this word transition. And as Nasreen was saying just now, they are afraid not to be elected again, for instance, if they are not pushing the negotiation deals with the businesses, or if they don't do what people want or think that are good for them financially. But if you look not even in the long term, but in the tomorrow term, so many decisions have to be taken, but they have to be taken informing people, and they have to be taken in a way that, as William was saying, is empathic. So people feel good about the decisions they're taking. People feel good about change. And the other thing that I had in mind was that, you know, we have to create bridges, because, you know, the climate change is happening everywhere. It's touching every people, but it's also isolating people, because when you suffer, you don't know that on the other side of the world somebody else is suffering. You're closed in. You're closed in your community. So I think create bridges and make people aware that, you know, it's one planet, it's one world, it's one family of human beings, and we have to encourage people to understand that also their own action is actually building something very important, which is their relationship with the world, their relationship with nature. So one of the things I've done in order to not become totally crazy with all this myself has been creating a lot of tools in meditation to help people understand that they need to serve Mother Nature, to serve the elements, to, you know, there is a connection. And the connection comes from the heart, comes from inside. And we need to support matter. Matter has supported us for thousands of years. But our attitude now needs to be also generous. And I think that for me, this is a challenge, because most people are losing touch with nature, especially now with COVID. You know, they put a mask, they have their things in their ears, they're totally in their own head. So yes, that's the challenge.
Yeah, definitely. There are various challenges in all the matters related to environment, especially with this one of the greatest challenges for humankind right now, that is climate change. So now moving on with our schedule, we would like to see if there are questions from the audience. Let's see.
Are I audible? Hello.
Yes, please.
I'm asked to you on that.
Oh, you just went on mute again. You were there.
Sorry. That
Yeah, now we
actually
hear you.
climate change and this climate and this situation actually is a global problem actually. And can you please let me know that how can global community act together for facing or for adaptation or for mitigation regarding climate change? Uh, can you please that it should be we should be work together, because as globally we are as a our planet are affected by this, and we have to work together. But how can it possible that we can work together for climate and environment? Thank you.
Should we answer directly or wait for Maria to give us the word?
No, oh, please go ahead if you want to answer.
Okay, in my view, that's why I'm working with the interfaith communities, because I think that, you know, if you have Christians everywhere, Catholics everywhere, Muslims everywhere, Buddhists everywhere. And I think that by making the religions, which in the beginning took quite a lot of time because most leaders had not much idea. The Pope and the Pope's document actually made a big difference to make most people at least a little bit aware, the encyclica. But I think that, you see, we are a big world and we can act locally. This is very important, but we can work by informing through all the different medias we can imagine. So I think the youth in the universities, or the women are also working a lot to, you know, like, and the indigenous communities also saving the knowledge and sharing the knowledge. So many things have started, but we really need to go on with it.
Thank you. Maybe William or Nisreen would like to add something, or maybe we should move to the next question. Okay, so please, for the following questions, use there's an option in there's a function that is called raise your hand in the Zoom panel. This can be found by clicking on the participants button, then selecting the little blue hand. When asking questions, please keep them as concise as possible to ensure we get plenty of time for other audience members to ask questions too. Fiona has a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm coming to this as someone who's training to be a communications professional, as a journalist. So I'm curious to hear what you think is the role that journalists and other communications people have to play in communicating issues of climate change effectively.
Yes, maybe William Nisreen would like to answer that.
Can you repeat the question, please? Thank you.
Sure, of course. So I'm curious what you think is the role of people like journalists and other communications professionals, and what sort of their responsibility is when it comes to communicating issues of climate change.
I actually work as a communications aide for my school. So I'd say that journalists, communications people, they have a vital role in communicating climate change. They definitely need to be using their platform and their stories to amplify this, as well as amplifying the voice of others. So if you're a journalist, or maybe you work in some sort of social media realm, ensure that like you're talking about these different like narratives and these different issues and these different nuances, while also highlighting the narratives and nuances of others. It's also really creative to tap into that into different ways as well, whether it be through social media, whether it be through campaigning. I'm pretty sure this COVID year has taught us a lot about how social media can be such a powerful tool for campaigns and for different marketing strategies and for just like really a lot of different social justice work and a lot of environmental justice frameworks. So really looking at that, I think it's something that we need to better emulate into our society. But for right now, we're definitely doing a really good job at it, and we definitely need to amplify that more.
Okay, so I think that is our last question for the panel. I would like to thank everyone for their thoughtful questions, and we would like to thank our panelists. We've learned and we've heard a lot of their experiences working in different backgrounds with different people, how they have adapted a lot of their work, because we definitely need to know our audience, and we need to communicate in a way that everyone can actually understand and apply in their daily lives. So thank you again. Thank you, Valerian. Thank you, Nasreem, and thank you, William.
Thank you to Anna, Maria, and all the best with your work, all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here also, and yeah, good luck for everyone.
Thank you. It was a pleasure having you. So now we'll be moving out to our breakout room structure. Is the second part of our panel, our webinar, sorry. We will move to the workshop where you will discuss various climate action communication questions with one of our amazing climate ambassador mentors. For our breakout rooms leaders, we have Shantanu. He's a climate ambassador mentor from India, and he will be speaking on the topic of conquering climate anxiety in climate action. Then we have Kiamut Din Ikram. He's also a climate ambassador mentor. He's from Afghanistan and will be speaking on the topic of social media as a tool for communicated climate action. Then we have Opeyemi Elujula, who is a climate ambassador mentor from Nigeria, who will be speaking on the topic of communicating climate change to different types of audiences. I will be speaking on the topic of finding reliable climate science data and translating it into terminology that can be easily understood by the general public. We're also delighted to be having the CEO of Care About Climate, Natalie Lucas, leading a discussion on how to market climate change solutions and actions. So when prompt, please go to your breakout room for a meaningful discussion with the mentors.
Answers maybe the second question. And so how could you see yourself using the techniques you learned in the future? I think it depends. For everybody in the workshop, it was different. But for example, maybe as somebody who might become an atmospheric scientist, I would, for example, create a website or translate some documents into languages from my country.
Thank you so much, Basil. I hope that our discussion has fulfilled your goals, right? So next, we have the group of Shantanu. They discuss on the topic of conquering climate anxiety with communication and climate actions. So who represents this group?
Prakriti would be sharing.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, okay, our topic was climate anxiety or anxiety on anything. I get to learn from him, Sanu. So I will be explaining question number second. What is the one that about communicating climate action you learn? I get to learn about a very different thing which I was not aware about. He told me the perspectives how we can solve the problems relating anxiety on anything, either it be of climate or either it be of our real life and the experiences. In that, I was like, I was completely thinking from a single side, let's say, like either good or either bad. But then after communicate to him, I get to know we can see the single phase or single side from four different sides that can be false side. That's how people intervene by themselves, how they build the perspective. Next one was a good side. That is a little information, which one is right. And then the right information that we provide them. Like we have done this before, I am experienced in this, sharing my all knowledge. And next one was the empowering, that along with me, I will be providing them my experiences. I will be getting to know from others, and then we will build a different then platform for changing. So regarding all those things, I will be implying them, and I have learned all those which through that I can bring a change. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Moving on, now we have the group of Kiamut, where they discuss on the topic of social media as a tool for communicating climate action. So who is the who represents this group? Sorry.
Imran will represent.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let me say some thank you. Let me say something about the first question. Biggest takeaway from your team. Actually, look, we are actually talking about social media and how the what and purpose actually, and how it's contribute for our uh, environment. And look, I can understand from there that we can use social media purposefully, and if is this social media actually can communicate with people, it can aware people, and by using social media we can communicate, and we can aware people actually. And the other thing is this social media is totally is engage all the people from the globe, and it can share knowledge, it can share information. By using social media we can share knowledge and and lots of events actually. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I see that Kujobi he raised his hand. Would you like to add something? Yeah. We hear you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you very much. And I want to answer question two. Communication climate actions in our community in Togo here, Togo, West Africa. And we sensibilize farmers, do not do bushfires. And then we sensibilize farmers to grow the plants against gas greenhouse, and then against change climate. And then every farmers can choose the the select seeds against climate change, because today the rainy season, it is come early, but it is not come early. If you use uh, the seeds who is not prevent against climate change, it is not good. And then we sensibilize every farmers to not do fire bush, to not cut trees, and plant trees every time and protect them against gas greenhouse and climate change. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Definitely, adaptation is necessarily everywhere. So now we have the group led by Opeyemi, where a discussion on the topic of communicating climate change to different types of audiences. I would like to mention that we have a couple of minutes until we finish. Who represents this group?
Thank you so much, Maria. Of course, unfortunately, I have to represent the group, we had members of the group had network challenge, and we also have someone from Togo who is also currently perfecting his English. So, but of course, the communication stemmed from basically understanding the language that people would understand when you speak to them about climate change. Of course, different communication attempts should be channeled to different sector. We talked about speaking to farmers, the approach being different to speaking to someone who lives in the coastal communities, because directly different people feel the backdrops of climate change in different sector, and the best way to get people to listen to you when you are speaking about climate change is to tell them how it affects them directly, because that's what they can relate with in their environment, in their immediate environment. Of course, there are other direct and indirect impacts of climate change that is universal, irrespective of your engagement or your sector, the industry you're working with, or where you live in. But of course, some are more particular to some locations. So for farmers, we talked about approaching them from the aspect of how it affects their output, and then we talked about how best to better position them, not only to be resilient to the climate crisis, but also to reposition agriculture to the front line of climate action via the agroecological farming approach. And of course, we talked about when you want to talk with people in the coastal communities, you mentioned, you talk with them how the sea level rise is taking and ravaging their lives and livelihoods, because that's what they can relate with much more better in their environment. So basically what we talked about is to capture the attention and audience of people when you speak to them about climate change, leverage on how it directly affects them, as a starting point for the conversation, and as such they will listen to you, because everybody needs a solution to the problem that is affecting. So if getting them, and the first thing to addressing climate action is to let people see that there is a problem and where the problem is coming from. And if you are able to clearly explain this to them via the observable realities in their environment, of course they would want to listen to you, and then you can achieve your aim of effectively communicating climate change. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Miriam.
Thank you for sharing. So last but not least, the group led by our own CEO, Natalie Lucas, where the discussion was on the topic of how to market climate change solutions and actions. So who will share their insights on this topic?
We only had 2 people in our group. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so basically we were able to see possible marketing solutions and actions that could be taken by individuals, volunteers, and experts in this beautiful field, climate actions containing it. And we saw that, just like we have said already, it's not something you shove down anyone's throat, So you have to find the compromise and how to know that these people have already, they practice, they have things they're used to, and you're bringing a solution to them, so you make them see the reason why they should go for your solutions. And then how your solutions, you have to make sure that these solutions are sustainable, so that they can find the advantage over what they are already used to. And then somehow we were able to cut into energy access and renewable energy as a tool to find a way to market your ideas, and you know to make climate change something that is marketable. But somehow we're able to come into the discussions of energy, and how we can make them see the reason why they could, for example, change their solutions for cooking, like taking clean cooking as an option, and when they do this, already you know that they are trying to adapt to something new. So you have to be careful what you tell them and how you give them this solution. You know, like we said earlier, these are people that probably are already used to using maybe firewoods in the rural areas, and for other people, they are used to, after farming or before farming, you know, they have to like burn bushes, you know. But you're trying to tell the farmers that, oh, you could actually cut this thing and probably like resell it or give it to carpenters. You know, there has to be some kind of some kind of, you know, you have to sell the idea that you can probably, if not make money, but find a way to like reduce the principal idea is to make sure that we're cutting down every action that can lead to a negative impact on the climate, on the planet, you know. And so doing this, you have to do this with, allow for lack of words, with love. You know, you have to do this with love, because most of the time, you know, for rural areas, these are the kind of things you see. And then for industrialized areas also, you know, just as the problem is for rural areas, we also have the problem of climate change in industrialized countries like first world countries, Germany, France, and the US. They also have these problems. Not everybody in the US is rich, so they want to find solutions to, you know, cut corners and just satisfy whatever their need or their want is. So in making solutions that are sustainable and like having the idea in your mind, back of your mind, that you want to market, you know, the solutions and actions to them, you have to, you know, do it with love and understand that it's a transition. Like they have to transition from something to some other thing. So yeah, it has to be a gradual process as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight.
Can I
So
say
thank you, everyone.
1 minute?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you for everyone. And this is like the transition world, like it's transformation and transition and transformation. This is the new world, and people are just transformed. Adaptation is like some people, they were just thinking that okay, adaptation is resilience, and now people are thinking that adaptation is transformation. And this is really important. Like I was telling in my group, like what is the social media role, in the communication. So if you see, you should target the audience, and if you target the audience, if they are business people, so you should communicate according to them. And if it is the farmer community, you can communicate according to them what is the role of social media in the farming, because using the social media, social media, they transformed the way that it was before. And transformation, just because they make everyone like a citizen, a journalist. Anywhere such thing happened, any disaster events happened, you can see automatically on the social media, and everyone just become like a citizen journalist. So like this is a transformation in the media and communication department as well. So like I was telling about the role of the communication, like for example, this is really important. Like if you see the current industrialized kind of cities like Germany and US and other countries that they are having, now they are just converting the urban system from resilience to transformation, and they're just making like they're adopting such a kind of things, like for example, green and blue infrastructure like this. So I was just commenting on one of the transition work. Thank you.
Thanks, Kiamut. So all of these were very insightful conversations, and I hope you were all able to learn something new about how to communicate climate actions today. So I would like to a few words from our climate ambassador program director, Haley Campbell, so she can wrap this up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks everyone for coming and participating and being involved with this conversation. It's really important, and I'm glad so many of you stayed and seemed like you got some really awesome takeaways out of this whole conversation. And I was going to share some takeaways, but as we've already gone over 8 minutes, I'll just end by saying, if you want to learn more about Care About Climate, please feel free to check out our website via the link on the screen and follow us on social media. I also shared my email in the chat. So again, if you'd like to get more involved, have any other questions, or just want to connect via social media or something, feel free to send me an email. But yeah, thanks everyone. And thank you to the mentors for putting this together and for Maria Rosa for moderating so well and doing a really nice job with that. So in any case, I hope everyone has a great day and thanks for coming.